But I got my Bible here, Matt. I feel like such a Bible. I have bookmarks.
That's
Sometimes this is the thing I'm about to say is probably like the most Southern Texas thing you've ever heard of. But I feel like those people that go to coffee houses and just study their Bible.
yeah.
I'm guessing that doesn't happen up in your neck of the woods very often.
No, actually, I think you might be surprised. I think I've seen it at coffee shops for sure here. But you just got to make sure you look around and go, it's for a podcast. It's for a blasphemous podcast.
A blasphemous podcast. Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a Doof Media podcast taking Mike Flanagan out on a rowboat in the middle of the ocean to set him on fire. My name is Scott Daly, and joining me as always, he's kind enough to keep, just cutting himself a little bit to feed me blood. It's Matt Freeman. How you feeling over there, buddy?
We have one of those IVs.
No.
I could just stick it in the vein, and then every time you come, I could turn the knob and
No,
you could
it's really important to me that it's in this very fancy goblet, and I just need it to come right from your skin.
You're right. The aesthetics of an IV would not really do it for you. Yeah.
No.
Never mind.
This week on the show, our time with Midnight Mass continues as we discuss Book 5, Gospel. Have you heard the good news, Matt? Riley is still alive. Sort of, for now.
He is risen.
Indeed. As Father Paul Hill begins to set his plans for the town into motion, he and Riley have one final AA meeting. Riley then heads out to make his last choice, which sees him on a rowboat in the middle of the ocean with Erin. And he spoilers, he doesn't make it. He dies.
Yep.
Man, what an episode, Matt. This is the one that I remember a lot about the show the first time I saw it, but this was definitely one of those moments. The ending of this episode is one of those television moments that you just truly never forget, where it's just like, oh, holy shit. That is not what I saw coming. I didn't know that's the type of story we were in. And then you have to immediately do well, what now? We got 2 episodes left. Where are we going from here? Stuff. So
Yeah.
It was a great one. What did you think? What did you think of the episode?
It's a great moment. It's a great episode. We'll talk, I think, a lot about the structure of the episode, how cleverly information is kept from us, how it's kind of bookended in this. I don't know, just like the sequence of every scene is perfect. The ending is obviously fantastic, right? So the ending of this episode, I think I just enjoy this show, like each episode more than the last. And then this to me was where it kind of ended on a, like, I just have to like watch that scene again immediately. I think that's what I did the first time and possibly every other time I've watched this show. I've like just had to watch that scene again because it's such a perfectly done dramatic crescendo, dramatic ending for this character's arc, everything.
Yeah, I agree. It's wonderful. We'll get into it. We'll talk all about why we think it works as well as it does. But I'm with you once again for the 5th time in a row. This is the best episode of Midnight Mass so far.
Yeah.
Before we get into the episode, Matt, do we want to talk about this exciting announcement we have? So here's the weird thing about this. This episode we're recording right now is not going to be out for a week and a half. There is a chance that the thing we are about to talk about will already be released by the time people actually hear us talk about it, which is a little weird.
Probably will be, I think, but
I think that is the plan.
Yeah.
So Matt, what am I vaguely referring to here?
I believe you're referring to our interview with Mike Flanagan that we recorded 4 days ago from our point of view.
Yeah.
Which was kind of great, kind of awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess this is an announcement for if for whatever reason you didn't see the bonus episode in your feed, please go check that out. Mike was so gracious to take an hour and a half of his time to sit down with us and basically just talk. And a lot of it was just us listening, because he's incredibly intelligent and very well spoken about the things he's passionate about. Like, I think we would feed him like one kind of lead in question and then watch him go. And that's like when Matt and I were sitting down to kind of like plan out what kind of questions we want to ask. We were like, we got to get questions that get him talking. And so I will pat us on the back for that, for managing to do that. But it was an incredible experience. We had so much fun doing it, and we hope you guys enjoy Mike's insights. He talked a lot about Midnight Mass, but also about Bly Manor, a little bit about Carrie and the Dark Tower as well. So we hope you guys check out that episode. It was truly like the highlight of everything we've done in podcasting up until this point.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Amazing experience, and I can't wait for y'all to get to listen to it.
Yeah, I think it should be out. We're talking with our editor, Jason. It's like an extra bonus episode he has to edit for us. So the only reason I'm not sure if it will maybe be out by the time people are listening to this is because we're throwing more work at him and trying to be gracious with his time. But man, check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into episode 5 of Midnight Mass, once again titled Gospel. This was, of course, written for TV by Mike and Jamie Flanagan. It was directed, once again, by Mike Flanagan, edited by Mike Flanagan, and the director of photography was Michael Famignari. Again, Matt, where do you want to begin with this thing? There's, once again, so much in this episode, so much I want to talk about. I got my Bible here, bookmarked. We're going to be really diving into some of these Bev Keen passages that she's using to justify what's going on.
Yeah.
But where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, this might seem random, but I actually think that might be a pretty good place to start. And the reason I say that is the episode is essentially structured around the axis of this final AA meeting between Father Paul, as I'm going to keep calling him for some reason, and Riley, which escalates. It's sort of like, this has been a dialogue between these two characters across this whole show. Mm-hmm. And the debate between them, the dialogue between them has evolved over time. And now it has reached a crux, a point of everyone is putting the chips on the table. Father Paul opens the conversation by saying, I'm going to actually be honest with you for once. 100% honesty, and he expects the same of Riley, which, I mean, there's like levels to that we can talk about, but I think talking about the Bev Keen quotes is appropriate there, because like it's all about Father Paul having just sort of given himself over to this idea of, okay, I guess whatever's happening to me is the will of God, and I am completely abdicating any kind of responsibility or choice or personal discernment. I feel horrible about this. This seems awful. This seems evil, but the will of God demands it of me, and so I have to do it. And then he finds the Bible quotes to support it. Bev finds the Bible quotes to support it, and it's this perfect illustration of this good, maybe I'm wrong to say this, but like this good-hearted man who has just like pummeled himself down and kind of made himself into a monster through his just giving himself over to dogma.
Yeah, I don't think you're being unkind or unfair there. I think that is accurate. I think that's all the talk we've been doing about Father Paul throughout the show so far has been us, I think, trying to point out and reinforce the moments where the show really does want you to think this is a well-meaning, kind-hearted individual who has just succumbed to this thing. And you're right, we're here now. And what I love about the contrast between last episode to this one, we talked about this a lot last week. Last episode, it's Father Paul like pacing frantically on his knees, like repeating prayers over and over again. He's desperately saying the Our Father and Hail Mary, and then he's also doing the little prayer for Angel of God, Guardian Dear, and obsessively and frantically like repeating this over and over and over and over again, because he's at this crisis point. He's at this crisis of his faith. He doesn't understand what's happening to him. He doesn't understand why he's doing these terrible things. And importantly, that we get emphasized in this episode, he doesn't understand why he doesn't feel as bad about it as he should feel. He doesn't feel guilt about it, and he doesn't understand why that is. And to immediately contrast with the Father Paul that we are met in this episode, both in the sermon he gives at the evening mass, which actually technically occurs after his conversation with Riley. We'll talk about the episode structure, I think, in a bit, but also when Riley wakes up and look in the morning, and Paul is just sitting there, like casually in the chair. In his chair in their AA meeting. He's just sitting there with the Bible open in front of him, and he's calm, he's collected. You're right. He's made his decision. He had this crisis moment, and he made his decision. And yes, part of the reason of that was because he had this nice book that you can, just flip through until you find something that supports why you're feeling the way you're feeling. So I think let's talk about the passage that he quotes here, right? Which is, I believe, Hebrews 9:14, I think it is. I want to talk to you about Hebrews really briefly here. And I'm going to do this with the caveat. Once again, I am not a biblical scholar. I have not studied this book near as much as a lot of people do. I'm just a guy who read it and also has it in front of me right now. And here's the thing about the book of Hebrews, Matt. It's a letter to Hebrews, and it's kind of doing this thing where early in Christianity there was a lot of confusion and a lot of people disagreeing with each other and a lot of possible breaking into sects, which of course happened. But there, a lot of what the book of Hebrews does, or the letter, the epistle, is kind of reinforce the basic tenets and basic understanding of what Christianity is supposed to be. So, the first book, Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus was a man. He is greater than the angels. He is greater than Moses. He is greater than the prophets. It's all this like laying the groundwork stuff. And then we get to Hebrews 9, which is what we quote here. And Hebrews 9 is about the old stuff that the Jewish people did before the new covenant. So it talks about the multiple rooms in the tabernacle and like which rooms certain people are allowed to go in and which rooms certain people are not allowed to go in. It's talking about all the old rules, and then the idea of like sacrifice and blood sacrifice, and like to have your conscience cleansed, to have your sins wiped clean, you would have to sacrifice a goat, whatever. And the point of the passage is that that's gone. We don't do that anymore. There's no specific holy space that only certain people can go into. There's no ritual sacrifice anymore. Jesus Christ was the one and only ritual sacrifice. He did that for all of us, and therefore our sins can now be expunged, and we don't have to do that other stuff before. So when the line that he quotes here, just think how much more the blood of Christ will purify our consciousness from sinful deeds so that we can worship the living God. The point of that passage is not, hey, you're not going to feel guilty anymore if you kill someone in the name of God. The point of the passage is the death of Jesus Christ has wiped your sins clean, and that is so much better and more permanent and more powerful and than older ritual sacrifice type stuff. That is the point of the passage. And I guess, sure, if you want to read just that line and interpret it as literally as possible, you can say, yeah, it says he will wipe your conscience. That's what it says. So it was okay that I did this. I guess. It's just, okay, I talked for a long time there, Matt. I'm sorry, but it's absurd to me. It's absolutely absurd.
Yeah. Right. I think that's I'm glad you went into that, because number one, I didn't know any of that, and I appreciate that. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate that detail. And it just becomes increasingly funny as you go into it, because it's like, yeah, this has nothing to do. It's almost the opposite of what Bev is trying to use it to say. I mean, I think it's fair to say it is the opposite of what Bev is trying to use it to say, where it's like trying to imply that this is a gift from Christ, that you don't have to feel bad when you do bad things, and using this connection to the idea and the imagery of blood, because it's convenient for her in that moment. Mm-hmm. And this is what both her and Father Paul do to to different degrees over the course of the episode. It's just, again, fully and now like unapologetically just retreating into, I'm going to just use scripture to justify what it is that I want to do. With kind of the added angle that like the thing that you're being manipulated into doing is satanic. Like, okay, I'm stumbling over this because it's like the angel / demon / vampire is not explicitly satanic, right? Because it's not explicitly anything. It's mysterious. We don't actually know what it is, but it's like, clearly this is an evil force that has like, clearly it's bad that it has stolen away your capacity to feel remorse, which is one of the things in your soul that makes you like capable of goodness, capable of making good judgments. You have to be able to feel remorse to be able to make good judgments, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the greatest irony of all that in this very episode, Father Paul gets on that lectern and preaches a homily that is talking about in this war, the only guide of God you have is your conscience, is the way that you feel. Like, and this is true. That, like, you know, there's a lot of debate amongst people of faith and people not of faith. Is like, where does our conscience like come from? Where does this innate feeling of right and wrong that we seem to have come from? And a lot of people are like, well, that's God. That comes from God. And this idea that we just know on some level what is right and what is wrong, and we feel that is God talking to us. A lot of people do believe that. And like, so we have Father Paul say this, and then it's revealed that what he means actually when he's saying this is not this feeling of guilt or remorse that you have, but that the hunger, the lust for blood that he is feeling is God speaking to him, is God's will on him. Which again, is just crazy.
Yeah, I've always been, especially back when I was, you know, struggling actively with faith and so forth. I was kind of obsessed with that question you just mentioned. Like, okay, we have this innate moral sense. Is, you know, where does that come from? And then it's like, well, sometimes it perfectly lines up with religious teachings, and you're like, how beautiful are these teachings? And then sometimes it clashes horribly with those teachings, and you're like, well, I must be wrong. But in that case, why did God put a mistaken compass in my head that leads me to think good is bad and bad is good? That seems messed up. Like, that's one of those things that messes with you when you're struggling.
Sure.
I love this. I don't think I have the line written down exactly right here, but during one of his tirades, Father Paul says, "Morality changes as God's will changes." And that was just so like perfectly terrifying to me, as just the ultimate indication that you were just in a maelstrom of self-justification, because the idea of morality changing, it's like Lovecraftian horror to me. I don't know, like that jumped out to me. I like immediately wrote that down as like my favorite moment of his speech.
Yeah, he gives that during the homily. And it is a really interesting thing, because, you know, there is a certain amount of mental gymnastics one has to do when comparing the God of the Old Testament to the God of the New Testament. And that is part of it, is like, you know, God's morality is perfect, but he changes his mind.
Right.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, you kind of have to do that to square the God of the New Testament and the Old Testament. And a lot of this is what Jesus was for, right, in that book. But I think understandable that where you already have to make that mental leap, and then things are happening to you that don't seem to square with your understanding of God's righteousness and morality. And so it's like, oh, he must have just done it again.
Yeah.
Okay. That, I get, if this is God's will, and I believe fully it is, because maybe I have to believe it, because if I don't believe it, then I'm just a monster. So I must believe this. Maybe it changed again, and I just don't understand it yet. And it's not up to us to understand God's will. So Yeah.
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 I mean, it is mental gymnastics, but it's I think both Bev and Father Paul are, kind of each of them individually doing their own like earnest mental gymnastics, because they're not lying like that. Like neither of them are. Like I love when Bev says, Jesus told us the resurrection wouldn't be pretty, and I'm not a biblical scholar either, but I that immediately makes you think like, yeah, like the end of the world is supposed to be bad, and then the resurrection is supposed to involve, it's too much to go into, and also I don't remember it that well, but like I know there's there's the end of the world. That's a thing that happens, and the idea of like the sun's going to be put out, and oh hey, luckily you will never need to go out in the sun when the sun has been put out because you're a vampire, and so that's actually pretty great for you. And like this makes galaxy brain logic sense, right? It's like, yeah, sure, right? You can't even really blame Bev for certain conclusions she's making, because it's like, this is all I got to go on.
This is a good point. And I think one thing we haven't stated specifically in the show yet is this a show critiquing the failure of people to practice what they preach, essentially? Or is it a show that is critiquing the ideas themselves, right? Because like I think I err more towards the former, and I think that has just a lot to do with how I was raised and who I am. But that doesn't mean that that's necessarily the ultimate conclusion, right? Like we said last week, it's like the problem with Christianity is the Christians. And maybe that's the opinion of the show. But the opinion of the show could also just as easily be the problem with Christianity is the Christianity, right? And stuff like that, where I think that's where we're starting to lean maybe a little bit in this episode, is that yes, I could read a passage out of Hebrews and say Bev and Father Paul are willfully misinterpreting this or carving it so in specifically out of context to justify their actions that's just absurd, and they're not being good Christians. But there's also moments of this where you could just say they are just kind of following, maybe not the literal teachings, but they are making assumptions and following breadcrumbs that are laid out to them by what their faith teaches them. I think that would be a fair thing to say.
Yeah. I think that's a fair thing to say. I mean, it's also just true that Christianity is actually not monolithic. I mean, even Catholicism is more monolithic than Christianity at this point in history, but even Catholicism has been malleable over time. It has the doctrine has changed to adapt to the world around it, and the reason why that's possible is because it is this amalgam of interpretations. The Catholic doctrine is not just like the Bible, whatever the Bible says, because the Bible is not it's not actually a didactic document. It's many different stories written over a long period of time, bundled together, many of which, if you did choose to use it as a sort of manual on how you live your life, would be directly contradictory. Yeah. And so you need you need a body of commentary that sits outside it. The Judaism has this too, where they have the Torah, and then they have a substantial amount of scholarship that wraps around it and is like, okay, this is what this means, and this is how you're supposed to make it actionable. And that's what the catechism and the doctrine of the church is for Catholics. And that's
I mean, a lot of what church is for a lot of Christians is literally go to a big room with your community and have smart man explain to you what the Bible means.
Yeah. Right. So in that sense, I think it's totally, I think the show, and this is my opinion, right? We can have our opinions. I think the show is critiquing the religion, because it's look, the religion can be morphed into being whatever it needs to be in a given moment, and that kind of means it's empty. Mm-hmm. It's funny because you and I both really admire a lot of the specific ideas and doctrines, but the problem becomes when you insist on packaging all of these things together, then you can kind of use it to justify anything.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about last week, the simple idea of Erin Green sitting on a couch and processing the death of her unborn child by believing wholeheartedly in heaven and this idea and this image of what her daughter's afterlife will look like. That is beautiful and simple and touching. And then you start like adding structure and like rules and societal obligations, and you just keep throwing shit into it over and over and over again, and it stops being this simple idea of like the thing that Riley poses in or talks about in this episode, where like this all started by people looking up at the stars and then making stories about what those things could possibly mean and represent. And you just take that the beautiful simplicity of wondering and questioning and believing, and you pull it down with the dogma and with all the nonsense, and it warps it into something almost unrecognizable.
Yeah. I think that's a good bridge to talk about Riley and his, role in the evolving debate here. I love, so it's pretty funny, I thought, because I totally forgot the detail that the whole story of the mouse. Honestly, I forgot that whole detail. That
yes,
that the way that Father Paul introduces himself as actually being the priest that Riley grew up with is reminding him of this time when Riley brought him a horribly maimed mouse, and his beloved trusted priest was like, we'll pray over the mouse, and then like snuck out and found an identical looking mouse and replaced it with replaced the obviously dead and dying mouse with the other mouse, and it was a miracle.
It was running around that little box. Was right.
And he admits to tricking Riley with a false resurrection, which is a wonderful idea in this context, where vampirism is also a false resurrection.
This moment, it sustained him for
a false resurrection that Riley then bolsters Riley's faith for another 10 years based on a lie.
Yeah.
A manipulation. Yeah.
It is wonderful. The huge disconnect between these two characters is perfectly illustrated in that moment, because Riley's like, well, that wasn't an act of God. And Father Paul's like, well, wasn't it? Like, just because God works through us, through our actions sometimes, does that make it any less of God? It's like, well, but do you understand, Father? Like you lied to him.
Yeah.
Like, there's a really interesting idea that like the entire concept of faith is really like believing in something where no evidence will ever be present, right?
Yeah.
And then we have this like, well, that bolstered your faith for 10 years. This lie bolstered your faith. And from the Father Paul side of it, it's like, well, God is real. God, this is the one true religion. We are correct. And this kept you going in the faith for 10 years. So it was unquestionably good and unquestionably the will of God. But it was a lie, though. But like that, and like that's like the kind of the willful ignoring of the reality of the situation is something that I think a person like me and Riley, of course, like really struggle with, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like the thing that I jumped to there is I'm like, but the mouse that I cared about, that I felt sad about, did die.
Yeah.
So you did nothing. God
did nothing.
It's not a miracle. It's a trick, and the mouse died.
Yeah.
Like that's actually the thing that matters here. Not what I thought, not what I believed, but what happened.
Yeah.
And you lied about what happened, right? And that's I think that's the risk when you get lost in this language game that Father Paul is playing, where he's just overwhelming him, right? That was one thing I really noticed about this episode, is it had these really uncomfortable overtones of just his complete manipulativeness. I think Father Paul has always been, 30 to 40% manipulative in all of his interactions with Riley. Like,
sure.
Like that he's a priest. He's kind of he's you at least had the sense previously that he's doing it for the benefit of the person he's talking to. Like I'm trying to help you. Let me help you see it this way instead. Like in the sort of mundane sense that all interactions are manipulations because you're trying to like get someone to see things your way. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, that's a little sketchy, but you are a priest. You're kind of expected to talk this way. But this one, he's just being brazenly manipulative. He's like trying to almost like overwhelm Riley's defenses with these sort of like multiple avenues of attack. There's really he's trying to like bludgeon him with rhetoric. Yeah. And Riley, it's not that he doesn't talk back at all, but he sort of talks back less and less, and his answers become more and more monosyllabic until the end where he leaves, and Riley is so kind of numb and mute at that point that the viewer is not even sure what he thinks, which is structurally awesome.
Brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah. Because you're like, was he totally won over? Did we just watch him get completely bamboozled? Or did Father Paul lose him the moment he admitted that he killed the mouse, and he's just been biding his time until he can leave this room, or somewhere in between, obviously. Mm-hmm.
I mean, to step back, like, what has happened here essentially is Riley was not part of the plan. Like there was no part of the plan that says Riley's going to show up and get turned into a vampire. But Father Paul, he of everything is God's plan and everything that happens is the will of God, is suddenly forced to reckon with this idea of like, now we have Riley. He's a vampire too. He's one of my apostles, I guess. And so, yeah, this whole conversation, the reason he's being more manipulative is now he's on the clock. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I got to get this guy on my side in 8 hours or less, essentially. Like that's why this conversation matters. That's why this is so important, that I have to win this guy over, and I have to use all of my cunning and all of my understanding and everything that I have to win this guy over to my side right now, because the sun's going to set and my plan's going to get kicked off, and he needs to be with me on this. And so, yeah, he's using everything he has. And there's parts of it that, like, I find it really interesting. So just overall, let's remind ourselves that the structure of these meetings between Paul and Riley from the very first episode have been Alcoholics Anonymous. You are an addict, and I am here to help you through your addiction. This meeting is about encouraging Riley to drink. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It is like, you are going to drink. Now, it's not alcohol. It's not wine. It's blood. But it's the same thing. It's succumb to the need, succumb to the desire. You have this thing inside of you that makes you want to do this, and you can barely control it. That's good. It's good that you feel that way. Let that go. Give into it. Giving into it is the will of God. And that's why you don't feel bad about it when you do it. And that's why you feel whole and fulfilled and at peace when you do it. I was like, yeah, I bet Riley also like felt at peace when he like threw some shots back. I bet he felt whole and his stomach felt full and he felt at peace, but that doesn't make it good. And I just love that. I love that that's our kind of entire framing device of this whole thing is, come on, have the drink, Riley. Drink the drink, Riley. Do it.
Yeah. I putting this together, the way Father Paul doesn't feel remorse, it's like being intoxicated. It's like he's drunk on the blood now, and he can't feel that remorse, right? Because that's, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people drink alcohol, but one of the reasons is, to tamp down on whatever those negative feelings are that haunts them. And people are haunted by remorse. They drink to forget. They drink to get rid of those feelings. And now Father Paul is, I mean, I don't know if he literally has to keep drinking blood to keep the remorse at bay. I don't think that's the implication, but it is this idea, like the vampirism is drunkenness. It is freedom from freedom from the psychological effects of having done horrible things.
Absolutely. And it's horrible that he like, it's really interesting because I was talking about this a little earlier today, it is almost the worst possible person to get tempted with this thing is an alcoholic, but also the best possible person to get tempted with this thing is a sober alcoholic, because Riley is used to dealing with those urges and dealing with these desires. And even like going back to the whole talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, the idea of putting your faith in a higher power versus a rational recovery, which is what Riley abides by. And in rational recovery, like we talked about, and he talked about, there is a voice in your head telling you to do things. It's telling you to drink. It doesn't have your best interest at heart. It just wants the thing. And what is that angel voice in Father Pruitt's head, if not that same idea? And so Riley, our guy, is used to acknowledging and feeling that he has this voice in his head, this person in his head that is constantly pushing him towards this stuff. And so ultimately, one of the reasons why Riley makes the right choice at the end of the episode is because he is prepared to resist those very things. And I love that about it. Like the great part, we talked about the kind of the hold and the tension build up of, did Riley bring Erin out here to kill her? Like I distinctly remember the first time I watched this episode, and yeah, the show does a really good job of making you not sure. And I think somewhere in the back of your mind, you're probably like, no, like he wouldn't, not Riley. I'm not fully bought into the idea that he would actually do this, but there's just a little bit of doubt in there, and that doubt pushes you through the tension of the scene. But then the reveal happens, and you kind of realize that no, he never would have done this. I have a question for you, because we do get this great moment where we catch up with Riley again. He has come back to the church. So one thing Father Paul says to him when he releases him is go out, wander around, see the world. It's going to look different to you. We hope you'll come join us again at Mass tonight. And then we see that Riley has returned to the church. As Mass lets out, he is standing there in the darkness, and he overhears the conversation between Mildred and her daughter, where she is like shocked and horrified about Father Paul's homily, and it's just like I don't recognize this guy. And I was wondering if the implication of showing that scene to us and allowing us to know that Riley witnessed that scene was he waffling, and like that is what sends him over the edge on his choice? What do you think?
Well, I think the whole sequence is left up to interpretation and keeping us in that state of suspense, right? I think, especially the way it's being played, he has this expression of sort of detached wonder. And almost, I just watched an Interview with the Vampire with my daughter. I mentioned this, I think, before. And so I have this image of the sort of floaty aloofness of Louis and Lestat, and that's, I mean, it's not quite the right thing. It's not quite the same thing, but like I'm reminded of it when you think about Riley walking around in the dark. He's very relaxed. His face is almost more relaxed than we've seen it, right? And he's looking at, he's kind of taking in the beauty of the world around him. Again, kind of like the Vampire Chronicles vampires, which is just fun to me because it's like I love that franchise too. And when he goes, I love that you mentioned when he goes to the church, because we can see him standing there, but like because of the way you've seen the way he's interacting with the world, you realize he's probably standing in like complete darkness.
Yeah.
And so the probably if people were to look toward him, they would see nothing. But and he's actually just creepily standing there like this, right? And so you're seeing him in all of this darkness, and it's like he's being seduced by the darkness and seduced by the advantages of the vampirism. And the last thing we heard him say, which we haven't mentioned yet, is Father Paul said, "How does it make you feel to hear that I feel no remorse for killing someone?" And he gets Riley to say jealous, because tortures Riley every day. He's in agony because of the remorse that he feels. And Father Paul is saying, I can free you from that. I can give you freedom from your remorse. And we see Riley verbally say, that sounds pretty tempting. I'll think about it. And that is what he has verbally told us. Now, you're correct that like knowing Riley and then of course seeing the choice that he makes, it's like, no, this is too fundamental to his sense of who he is as a person, what it means to be a good person, for him just deciding to just fuck it, that girl that I killed, it's fine. God doesn't really care, and I'm a vampire now, and so it's all cool. It's fine. Like that's just not a thing that he would ever be okay with.
Yeah. I mean, he ultimately can't do the trust in a higher power thing that AA demands of him, and that Father Paul is demanding of him. He just can't do that. It's not the way he's built anymore.
Yeah.
And thank God, right?
Yeah.
And that saying thank God there is ironic, because I think that is one really interesting factor in this whole thing that we haven't talked about yet. Is Father Paul makes a point to him and says, like, he's trying to argue that this girl you killed, like, some good came out of that, some purpose came out of that. There was larger purpose to that. It wasn't just this mundane, horrible accident that happened because you fell asleep at the wheel because you were too intoxicated. It brought you here. It brought you here at one of the most crucial moments in the history of the earth.
Right here on this island right now at one
and
of the most crucial moments in the history
I think
of our world.
ultimately, because of the choice we see Riley makes, Father Paul is wrong about his interpretation of that. However, and this is why the show is fun, Riley is here.
Yeah.
And without spoiling things, Riley's choice here will go on to have effects that ripple out and result in how everything goes down at the end of this story, right? So, like, there's a certain person who could say, yes, it was the will of God for Riley to come out here and to be on this island at this time, but it was to not help Monsignor Pruitt in his plans, but to help stop him, ultimately.
A connection that I kept thinking of over the last week is the Stephen King book that I have thought about a surprising amount over the years. I wonder if you know what I'm going to say.
I do.
Desperation. Which is about how God can really screw people over.
Yeah. The basic like tagline of that novel is God is cruel.
Yeah.
I not the best book in the world, but we had so many fun conversations about theology with that book and what King is wrestling with in his understanding of faith and religion. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Well, just like this, again, like without spoiling, just hanging on what you said about, yes, it's a highly consequential decision that he makes. Maybe that absolutely was the will of God, and maybe it's just that God has to make sacrifices sometimes, and it just needs to be this way. And maybe in some way this is better than any other alternative that could have happened, as horrible as that sounds. You don't know because you're not God. You can't actually see the playing field. So it's and also maybe there is evil in this world. Maybe there is evil in this world. Maybe God is not omnipotent, and maybe God has to sometimes cause a person to have to lose everything to defeat that evil, and that's a necessary trade. Maybe not. Maybe it's all a coincidence. I love it.
I love, I adore it so much. I adore the implication of it, and that, like, I mean, so far at least the show has not offered any definitive conclusion on any of this stuff, and that's one of the reasons why I like the show. Right? Is it a show that is not going to give you definitive answers to any of these questions, because as Riley said himself, I don't trust anyone that says they have a definitive answer to any of these questions, because nobody really does.
Yeah.
We all have what we believe, and that's it. On that note, I really did part of the final AA meeting. Father Paul takes the serenity prayer, right? God, please help me to have the serenity to understand the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. And he takes this, and it becomes kind of this ongoing mantra of this conversation between the two of them. And it's done in a really interesting way of like Paul's, I want to move on from the bad stuff, right? Yeah, I killed Joe Collie. Yep, but I can't change that. Also, you're a vampire now. You can't change that. So we're moving on from that stuff. Don't even think about it. I really like what he said about Joe Collie, by the way, where he says, I think he says something to the effect of like, he was beyond repair, right? He says, sorry, Joe Collie was beyond repair, and so God decided to take him. And Riley's response is, says who?
He was beyond
right?
repair. Well,
And this idea of like, well, God looked at this guy and said, nope, can't fix him. Might as well just let Father Paul eat him. Is just, it's so absurd. But I love that introduction to it. And then over and over again, he repeats this and like finding the courage to change the things that we can. And so in Father Paul's mind, this is like, embrace the vampire, right? Like you are a vampire now. You can't change that, but we can change the world and make it better and make it so death is over. There's no more death anymore because we can do this. But once again, the double meaning of that is, it to me is like, that is correct, Riley. You cannot change the fact that you're a vampire now. You cannot change the fact that you killed this girl, but you can have the courage to, at the end of the day, do the right thing. And the right thing is almost always the harder thing, right? That is just like a truism of life, that the idea of letting yourself go to this desire, this animalistic urge that is inside of you is the correct thing, is the good thing, is the right thing, is the godly thing, is like diametrically opposed to everything. The right thing is almost always the harder thing to do. The dark side is easier than the light side, Matt.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. That's how it always has worked. And so like, I think there are moments in this speech and in this conversation where we are, as you said, meant to be a little bit worried about Riley. And is he being won over by this? And yeah, I think how do you feel jealous is one of those major moments. But looking back on it, there are also, I think, moments threaded throughout this entire conversation where Father Paul is inadvertently giving Riley the exact ammunition he needs to ultimately make the correct decision. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. He is inadvertently, I think the mouse story is a perfect example where he's trying to make a point and Riley just takes the complete opposite point. And I think doesn't even bother arguing, because he has realized, Father Paul has fully embraced the dark side. He has chosen the easy path, right? He's in full self-justification spiral mode. You know, Bev shows up and pours it on even more. I love I love the way Father Paul has started to sort of treat Bev here, like this interaction where Bev comes and she gives her little tirade. Which is also great, by the way. Like it's great in a different way than what Father Paul's been doing, because it's fully self-righteous and indignant, whereas Father Paul was at least trying to like beseech and persuade. And I love when Bev goes, "I'm frustrated," and Father
such a
Paul
toddler
goes,
thing to do. I heard my son in that moment when he gets mad, because my son literally will say, "I'm frustrated."
And I love
I'm frustrated.
Linklater's delivery of, I know. Like, it's this long suffering, but also like, this person is my right hand woman. I have to rely on her. I mean, I think it's bigger than that. It's like God has chosen Bev Keen for some reason, to be my critical helper here. I absolutely rely on her and I need her, because she is not a vampire, but she's 100% going to help me. And this has got to feel ordained for some reason. So this is one of those things where it's like, doesn't quite sit right with him, doesn't quite sit right with Father Paul, but he's like, okay, well, God is going to ask us to do terrible things, and one of those things is going to be to align myself with Bev Keen, I guess.
Yeah. I really like Bev in this episode. I think the frustration, the very thinly veiled like anger that Riley of all people was chosen for this great gift, and not someone like her. So I stumbled upon, I don't even remember how this happened, but I stumbled upon a review of an episode. I think it was last week's episode. Maybe it was the one before. It was someone like covering the show as it came out, or just like wrote individual reviews for every single episode. And one thing that the review said that I thought was really interesting is they said, every single character in this show is very complicated, three-dimensional people that, like, even Father Paul, who's clearly the antagonist, like, has, like, you feel complicated about him. And we echoed that sentiment as well. And then they said, except for Bev Keen, who is one-dimensional and just sucks. And it's like, she's just supposed to be a representative of a mouthpiece of a certain brand of Christian and Catholic, yada, yada, yada. And I thought that was really interesting because, well, for a couple reasons, like like it's okay to have some characters like that in your story. Like every character need not be equal. Right. Mm-hmm. And right. B, I just don't know if I agree with that, because I mean, I agree maybe Bev is like slightly flatter than some of the other characters, but I think this episode to me really speaks to the complicated nature of her and her ongoing relationship with Monsignor Pruitt, and the way in which we're kind of seeing their relationship crack and fracture a little bit. Yeah. And based on what we understand of who she was, and she was the most important religious figure on this island. I think you said that last week, because Monsignor Pruitt was essentially not there anymore mentally. So it was her. This new guy shows up. She gets worried about that for a second. Then he is doing these miracles and all this stuff is happening. And then it's Pruitt again. So like there's this complicated relationship between them. And she clearly doesn't agree with his methods and is not in support of them. And I just love the way in which her like disagreement. I mean, this is how like religions splinter and go off to form new sects, right? This is exactly how it happens. Both of these people are devout believers, but they have different tactics that they would take. Bev's is much more forceful, much more, I guess, like she's much more of a zealot, you could say. I don't know. Like, yeah. I'm just really into that idea. And I think that complicates her as a character, and watching the ways in which she reacts to what Pruitt does as someone who fully believes that he is acting on the will of God while not agreeing with it and being frustrated with Riley. And then there's also a scene when Mildred shows up to the church for the evening mass, she like runs up and gives her a big hug. Mildred, and it's very clear to me that Millie like fucking hates her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she does not want to hug her at all.
She goes, "Oh, yeah." So okay, yeah. I mean, I broadly agree with everything you said. So another writer who I like once said that the way to make a three-dimensional character is to take 2 or 3 one-dimensional characters and wrap them together. And what he meant by that is you make a three-dimensional character by introducing conflicting desires into the same character. And then you let that play out, and that plays out in surprising ways. Okay, all well and good as far as that goes. But what if your character is by design a zealot, like you said? What if their thing is they are 100% devoted to this? Yeah. The reason that they're 100% devoted to it is basically because it makes them feel better about themselves, and that's kind of it. Like, they're one track. They're monomaniacal. Mm-hmm. Bev loves religion because it's a way for her to feel better than everyone, because she gets to be right. Not only right, but she gets to be part of the chosen few who gets to go to heaven, and everyone else gets to burn in hell. And the better a job that she does at being a good Christian, the more definitely certain she's going to go to heaven. And so it's all totally self-reinforcing. And that's thematically relevant, because it's like you create a system like this, and you end up sort of molding people like this who believe that, where Bev has no conscience, actually. She just has that. She just has this sense of like, this is the cool club, and I'm going to try to like I can't literally lead the cool club, but I can get a really high station in the cool club, and that makes me cool.
Yeah.
That's just a realistic type of person. So
Yeah, no, you're right. And the way I love when she said it's all there in the book, Riley. Like, you talked about Revelation and she quotes Revelation here. Like Riley tries to get her in a gotcha and is like, what about this? Pointing at his burned skin. Did Jesus talk about this?
Is he?
And this?
Was this in the gospel? I think is what he says.
Is this in the
And
gospel?
she's like, no, that's Revelation, dear. The fourth cup
That's Revelation.
of the angel is
The fourth angel
that
poured
on the sun and it will scorch man. And it's like,
with fire.
okay, Bev, let's play that game.
That is the thing about
That's only
Jesus
happening
coming
to two
back
people.
us. They told us from the
And also,
start
what about
that
the
he
three
would
cups
be
before that, which were like plagues and like boils and like we're just gonna skip over that because like she is living in a world where she has actually, like, to her credit, I guess, she is almost encyclopedic with the Bible, right? Where she just like will continually throw stuff at you.
Yeah.
Like she's got this thing memorized and she can throw out anything. When she's talking to him about that this is the flesh of God, the blood of God, she throws John 6:54 out there like nothing. When he's hesitating to drink, she throws out another passage of like, if you drink unjustly, like she's just like, she's got it all and she's just throwing it out there and she's got a Bible quote for everything. And it's like, I think we kind of saw this with Wade last week, the Scarboroughs and with Sturge as well. Like you get someone who does believe in God and fully is bought, and you just like start throwing Bible quotes at them. You just like pummel them with quotes over and over and over and over again. You can make a rational, good, well-meaning person roll a body into a carpet and throw it in the bay. And then continue to do, like, they are basically now his apostles and are going to continue to do whatever Father Paul wants. And like, we kind of made fun of Wade Scarborough. Like we called him kind of goofy and maybe a little doofy and not all there, but also like he had a level of kindness to him where he, like, I think we read a little bit of animosity in it with Sheriff Hassan, but I think there's also just a genuine, like, we want this to work out. We want you to be part of this community. The only way you can do that is by becoming Catholic. Sorry. But he just seemed like a decent guy who now is participating in murder actively. And that is the power of this stuff. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sturge, like Jesus, Sturge just becoming like a walking blood battery for people.
Yeah, the blood bag. Yeah, yeah. No, and part of let's just kind of remind ourselves. I'll remind myself, like, these people just saw an incredible biblical miracle before their eyes. Like they're swept off their feet by this, and the more proximity they have to that, the more just shocked at the grace of God they are. And then when really weird stuff starts happening, it's like, who am I to look the gift horse in the mouth? This all seems to be part of the same thing to them, right? Their daughter can walk, and now maybe the priest has to drink blood, and you gotta have some trade-offs, I guess.
Yeah,
I did want to say, like, I love that when he begins giving his fiery sermon, and he's talking about the army of God, which is, I don't think, a phrase I've ever heard a priest say in my life. I love that we see the camera is giving us a look at different characters' reactions, and I love that there's kind of a spectrum. Like some of them they're like, okay, all right, yeah, we are the army of God, and then some of them are like, what is he saying? And then some of them are just like, what the hell is this? Where is this coming from? So there's a...
And then some are Bev Keen, who is there with her eyes shut and just like...
he's finally saying what I've been saying in my head this whole time. Yeah, but I love that there's this realistic depiction of how different people are at different places and they're going to kind of hear that differently.
I agree. And I think that's one of my favorite homilies in the show, because it is building up everything that has happened before it. We talked about this throughout the early episodes, that this guy gives good homilies, actually. He's passionate. He's articulate. He's well-spoken. He hits people where they live. And, you compared it to being a young college student going to church, and that priest's ability to tie in the struggles of being a kid in college and of faith. And like, he's doing all this stuff so well that he's won you over. And then this one starts the same way too. This is the Good Friday Mass. This is the passion of the Christ. This is Jesus's death, and the irony of calling it Good Friday. And he leans into that, and everyone's kind of along for the ride. It's like, yeah, we call it good, a horrible thing. Jesus had to do a horrible, awful thing for the good of us all. And then it turns, and I love the first person that Flanagan cuts to is Mildred. Mildred, who knows Monsignor Pruitt better than anyone. And she is one of the ones that has the clearest, what the fuck? And so like sometimes shows want you to reach your own conclusions and stuff. And I think there's a lot of things that we've been talking about over this episode that like they want us to come to our conclusions. Sometimes though, a show wants you to know how it wants you to feel in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the second he starts talking about God's army, cutting to Mildred Gunning and having her go, what the fuck? And then cutting immediately from that to Bev Keen, who is eyes closed with a serene look of happiness on her face. Like that is the show communicating exactly how you're supposed to feel about this turn that's happening. You're not supposed to feel good about it. And so if you are already not feeling good about it, the show is saying, good, embrace that. This is a turn. This represents a change. And yeah, we get to see everyone else in the church have varying levels of those two kind of dynamically opposed feelings on what's happening here.
I mean, Riley's parents were one of the groups that I was really also thinking about, where theirs is not as overt, but they're more uncomfortable. Not rejecting it, but just sort of feeling like this is not my faith, but I'm not. Maybe they're not even going to talk about it. Maybe they're going to go home, and maybe one of them will go, that was an odd homily, and the other will go, yeah, and that'll be the end of it, right? But it clearly bugged them. And it's setting up for future things, obviously. But I love that. Yeah.
I mean, this is like, we haven't really talked about the structure of the show very much yet. And I think this maybe is a good a time as any. I think that homily technically happens after everything we see between Father Paul and Riley. But I think it's so pivotal the way the show structures this whole thing that we see the homily before that. We already talked about the idea of your conscience being your guide, and the way you have an assumed meaning of that when he says it in the homily, and then you understand the deeper meaning of that when he talks with Riley. But just like that is a shocking surprise moment. That is the first time we see Father Paul in this episode after the absolute mess he was last episode. Actually, the first time we see him is when he walks back behind the church and like brazenly pours the vampire blood into the wine that Riley's brother was pouring, because he's not even like trying to hide the fact that he's putting something in the wine. I mean, I guess it's in a chalice and it kind of looks like wine, so whatever. But and then he goes out there, and the way he like almost does like a mic drop when he finishes the homily, where he's like, "We're gonna do great things," and then he just like walks away.
Yeah,
it's like, the mass isn't over, Father. Like, where are you going? It is like I just love that, like, that we get to see that, and then we get to fill in the blanks of that, and that I think the show is doing that constantly throughout. Like I really do. We open the episode on Riley is missing, and we, the audience, know what happened to Riley. But we also, like, he could just very easily just be dead from that, right? They don't necessarily have to turn him into a vampire, right? It could just be like Bill. Don't want to call him that. His mom will be mad. Yeah. Which is another thing that we do early in the episode. We have this kind of 1-2 punch of Bill's/Bull's mother going to Sheriff Hassan, reporting him missing. Then he goes looking for Joe Colley to see where Bull is. Joe Colley's missing. Then Erin Green comes in and is like, oh, by the way, I have a missing person to talk about. It's Riley Flynn. And you can kind of see, I think this is really great because Raul Coley can't like come right out and say, oh, this is the third one. Something's happening here. But he kind of conveys that with his acting in the scene with Erin Green, where he's like, he can't say that to her. He doesn't want to worry her more, and he doesn't know if any of this is connected or not yet. But you can see the way he's like taking this more seriously suddenly, because now that's 3 people on the island that have gone missing in the last couple days.
Right.
Really good performance from him there.
Because it's like she expects him to be like, you haven't seen the guy in half a day, and you're freaking out. But no, he's like, let me write this down.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's, I think also,
Yesterday morning.
I think I remember thinking this the first time I saw the show, where it's like, what do these 3 people have in common? They're all kind of the fuck ups. They're the two alcoholics and the guy who sells weed to the kids. Like, they probably all got involved in something and things didn't go well, and who knows exactly what but like, I think that's his assumption. I think that's why. Anyway, that's.
Yeah, but I mean, and then I really love the scene where Ed finds out that Riley's not with Erin, because they had that beautiful moment we talked about in the episode last week. That moment of connection, that moment where he apologizes to his son. He tells his son he loves him, and then his son goes missing. And man, Ed Flynn immediately thinks his son has fallen off the wagon. Is going and throwing it all down the trash. And like, on a certain level, you understand why he would think that. And on another level, you're like, man, this is the part of people like Joe Colley and people like Riley that they're just never going to be able to catch a break. For like, they're never going to get the benefit of the doubt. Right? Just like ever.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really sad. Like, it made me sad because the reality is his son. At that point in the episode, we strongly suspect that his son is dead while he's giving this like really, ungenerous rant about how his son is such a fuck up. Turns out his son is actually alive, but he's never going to see him again. Yeah. So hardly any better. And you're I think in that moment, or at least later, you're imagining like he's going to regret having this reaction. But yeah, you're right. It's can't catch a break. That's true. We kind of moved on from the point, but I just wanted to mention that like while he's giving this fiery sermon, he's wearing the red chasuble.
Oh yeah, because it's Good Friday. Yeah,
it is Good Friday. Like, it's the correct one to be wearing. I just love that. I love the imagery of, we've seen the variety of colors, and now he's like taken on this completely different persona. And he's wearing a red robe.
Blood red? Yeah.
Blood red looks very imposing. And it's just, I mean, really, it's a coincidence. Well, it's a coincidence, but also Mike Flanagan wrote it, so it's not, it's by design. So it's just a great image to have him giving this speech wearing a red, blood red outfit.
Yep, absolutely. I really liked the moment where he knocks on Erin Green's door. So like, I think the closest this episode goes to stretching the suspension of disbelief is that like, we're really leaning hard once Riley is at that door, and then up until he gets on the boat and we realize he's not out there to murder Erin. He is being like very kind of like concerningly undescriptive and cold. Yeah. And part of that is because he's a vampire, right? Like, it's just like, it's like, this is, in this universe, this is kind of how the vampires are. But like, I actually think the actor does a pretty good job of this, where like, it's not that he's lying, or it's not that he's like acting out of character just for our benefit to build suspense, but it's just like, there is that moment where he opens the door. I think it's also like, you get like the violin sting when he opens the door there.
Yeah.
You're just like, right. Oh, I've been primed by this to say, uh-oh here.
Yeah. That happens when we see a vampire, and it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think very good performance, I think, overall, but like I guess maybe got a little close to hitting that moment of like, man, Riley, why are you being so coy about this whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's just trying to get he's just desperately trying to get Erin out of there. And then
Yeah.
I think also another degree of it is he is resisting the incredible bloodlust that he is feeling.
Yeah.
So he's like just locking down on himself the whole time.
I think that's it. Yeah. It's like he is actively the entire time, like telling himself, no. He's doing the very thing that Father Paul said he would not be able to do.
Yeah.
Because Father Paul has now convinced himself that when he lets the bloodlust take him, that is God taking over his body and doing his will, and he is powerless to resist it. No, that's not true. We see with Riley that's not true. So yeah, I think you're right. I think part of the coldness of that is certainly that.
Yeah.
That he is just like spending the majority of his will on not doing that.
Yeah. So, let me know if I'm taking you too literally, but my interpretation of kind of this whole the whole sequence is not that he's going to like kill her, but that he is going to turn her. Like I never really thought that Riley would just like callously feed on his lifelong love, Erin Green. I thought at worst what he would do is turn her and like, welcome to eternal life. And now we get to be together forever, which is the moral failure that Father Paul is making.
Mm-hmm.
But he's stronger than that. Anyway, just wanted to see if you thought the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like we're kind of primed with that by what Paul tells him, which is like, you're going to walk out there and you're going to find the person to share this communion with, and it will be God. God will pick them for you. And so yeah, I mean, like if there's ever a moment where we believe he's actually about to bite her, yes, it is to eventually turn her, not to just kill her outright.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because that's much more believable than that he would just want to kill her, because that's just a totally different guy, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about the ending.
Okay. Yep.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Yep.
So we do this story and we lead into this moment where we're like playing the tension at its highest, where she says, "You've got me out here all alone. We're nowhere for me to go." The tension's rising, and finally he says, "You're wrong. We came out here so I would have nowhere to go, not so you would have nowhere to go."
I brought you out here so I
and
have
then
nowhere to go.
the instrumental version of "Near Thy God," near to God. I forgot, what is the name of the?
Near my God to thee.
Yeah. The instrumental version of that song picks up, which we will revisit that song in a couple episodes, but it's an instrumental version that picks up here, and the whole tone of the scene shifts, and suddenly we're in this moment where he is saying, "I'm not as strong as you.
My whole life.
I need you to get out of here, but I know you won't listen to me, so this is the only way I can think of to force you to listen to me."
I love you.
And then his last words are, "I did my best.
I did my best.
I did my best." And he did. He did. Like this is sad because we loved Riley, and this is why he's second billed on the show, because he didn't make it out of episode 5. But he did his best, and what the show gives him in his final moments is incredibly beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as the sun comes up and hits his face, we cut to the young woman that he killed. Her face is no longer marred. There's not pieces of glass sticking into it. It's just her, and she smiles at him, and she takes his hand. And if you believe Riley's version of what happens when you die, then you believe that what happened in that moment is his brain released a bunch of DMT, and he was having his final dream. And in his final dream, he dreamed that the woman he killed forgave him. And that's beautiful. But if you don't believe that, if you believe that there is heaven and afterlife, whatever, then you believe that God is real, and the soul of the woman that he killed was waiting for him to take him to the afterlife with a smile on her face and a note of forgiveness, representing her forgiveness and God's forgiveness and all this stuff. Either way, it doesn't matter who's right. It doesn't matter, right? Because in that moment, it gives Riley something. And That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And I love that it sustains, like you said, both interpretations. And I don't know if I'm going to say this clearly, but it's like maybe both, you know?
Sure.
Maybe they're both. Maybe you know, the world is a material world, but maybe it's a material world that has the divine breath breathed into it, and so DMT is the way in which God enacts His grace. Who knows, right? And we don't, and the show doesn't tell us
because the show, like, how dare it, like, come up with, like, say definitively, right? Like, like, how dare I say definitively? How dare you say it definitively? Nobody knows.
Yeah. I love that. And I love, so, I mean, I don't want to like move on from that moment because we could talk about that moment, you know, more obviously, but like what kicks it up yet another notch above what would already be a spectacular ending to an episode is we just like cut into
the hard cut. Yeah.
Into him immolating in the sun and Erin just screaming the heartbreaking, wrenching screams of horror. Kate Siegel once again earning that billing place. Just incredible, like just a heart-wrenching ending on in every way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect because it doesn't, in my opinion, it's this really aggressive hard cut that completely shifts the tone of the scene. But it doesn't take away from anything else. Like, it doesn't take away from Riley's moment. It doesn't take away from the feels you have of that I did my best moment and the gift that he's given of this young woman forgiving him either own. Like, just to reiterate what we said, if it is just his DMT and he's seeing this woman forgive him, then that means that on some subconscious level, he has forgiven himself, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that is the beauty of that, if that's what you believe is happening. That, like, if he allows his final dream to be, she's here and she's going to smile at me and forgive me, then on some level, he's allowed himself that, which is beautiful. But yeah, the hard cut doesn't take away any of that. Yeah. In fact, it almost reinforces it because it says he's done this thing for you. Like, let's be clear here. Father Paul, throughout this entire episode, compares himself to Jesus, like, multiple times, right? He says, like, he calls Riley doubting Thomas to his Jesus, where Thomas was the one that didn't believe in the resurrection. Really bummer for Thomas, by the way, who, like, just a guy came back from the dead and you're just like, are you sure? And now you get brandished that for all of eternity now. You are doubting Thomas. So he compares himself to Jesus multiple times. The thing Riley does at the end of this episode is 20 times closer to being Christ-like than anything Monsignor Pruitt does in this episode.
Yeah.
The idea of sacrificing himself for the good of everyone else, casting his life aside, like, it matters. And so that hard cut shows that it matters, but also shows that job's not done yet, Erin. Now it's on you. It's on you now. Riley did his best. He did what he could. And now, as Jesus said to us, your turn.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree with you that it doesn't undermine, but it just punctuates that ending and leaves you with this complex, multi-dimensional feeling. The screams going into the credits with the without music, right? It's
that hard cut to black. From the screams, and he holds on the black for a while before it even says directed by Mike Flanagan. It's great. And it's a fun thing, like, in these shows where, like we said at the very beginning, you get to them, okay, what's next, right? Like, Erin's got to now row back to the island. Maybe she'll listen to him and row right to the mainland, but come on, no. She's going to row back to the island. She now believes Riley's story, and she's got to recruit her team.
Yeah.
How's that going to work? Who's going to believe her?
Right. we're obviously setting up some really interesting conversations about faith and meaning, because it's about interpretation at this point, where it's like, yes, Riley gave his life so that Erin could have a shot at basically putting a spin on this vampirism thing, right? It's a doctrinal thing, is what I'm trying to say. It's like, what interpretation are we going to take from these things, from the events? There are objective events that are happening. How are we going to interpret it?
Yeah.
And I think it's really great that Erin, we had that scene with her a few episodes ago where Bev was just steamrolling everyone in that, PTA meeting. And Erin kind of tried to step in and be like, it's not really, you can't really just be handing out Bibles in public school, and just got dismissed. And Erin was just like, all right, fine, not worth it. And it's like, okay, that's a statement about Erin's character. She's somebody who's just not interested in having that fight, doesn't feel like she has the social standing to have that fight, doesn't want to have that fight, doesn't think she could win that fight. Now you have to have that fight. It's the same fight. It's the same exact thing. We've actually set it up already. I like, brilliant. It's brilliant. Love that. So just one before we move on from the ending sequence, we were talking about the idea of Riley being actually like sent, right? And he did say that he kept having this dream of him on the rowboat with the girl that he killed. And, little subtle, minor, just a dream, could be nothing, could just be the subconscious, but it does give him the idea at the very least to say the boat. We can go out on the boat. It'll be away from everyone. I won't be able to escape this decision that I made, even if I get scared. And we'll see what happens, but it's a decision. Yeah. Based on the dream. So
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I think it's good that you reminded us of that, because it's been a consistent thing through the first episode that we've been cutting to Riley sitting in this rowboat. And the last time he had the dream, the night before everything happened, Erin was in the boat with him.
Yep.
For the first time, and he didn't know what that meant.
Yep.
But you're right. The show doesn't state this explicitly, but it is probably exactly what you said. It's what gives him the idea of this is the place to do it. So where did that dream come from? Could be nowhere. Could be a coincidence. Could be something else.
Yeah.
What a fun way of wrestling with what faith is and what belief is. I love this.
Yeah. I mean, just while we're kind of micro analyzing that moment, I want to rewind 5 seconds even before the point that we talked about and just say, I don't remember in what order I realized things, when I first saw the episode, but as the minutia of the way the scene plays out is Erin is trying to be like, you wouldn't do that to me. And it's still leaving open the possibility of he's got her alone on this boat so he can turn her. And then he starts talking, and then only as he's almost done talking do you see the faintest change in the light. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, that's just that feeling right there. Yeah. Is the feeling of realization. Everything after that realization is just kind of the wave breaking, but that first moment of realization is the power of it.
It's perfectly done. The one thing that's been obviously consistent throughout the show is the use of the sun and sunrises, and the power of them. And this is, one of those moments where we just perfectly build to that, and it's so well timed. You're absolutely right. I really liked that. I want to say, to Erin's credit, the person we see here, even if she thinks for a moment that Riley has taken her out here in the middle of nowhere to hurt her, she's like, no, I don't accept that. I don't believe that. I believe maybe you're asking me for help. And she immediately goes into help mode. I'm going to help you. I'm going to get you what help you need. I'm not going to be scared of you. I refuse to be scared. Not of you, Riley Flynn. I will not. And we're seeing a powerful version of her, right? I mean, we've always seen and talked about her relationship with Riley as she was the strong one. And I think he reiterates that in this episode. But to your point, we also saw a version of her that kind of crumpled under the overwhelming power of Bev Keen's dogma. Maybe this version of Erin that is pulled out on a boat in the middle of the night and says, no, I don't accept that. Maybe that's the version that's going to row back to shore and be like, this is me. This is mine. I mean, I think to remind us, this is an episode after Erin lost her child mysteriously, went to the mainland for a second opinion, and was told essentially by the doctor there, no, you're wrong. You've never been pregnant. And maybe you want to have some mental health counseling because the doctor's assumption was you're crazy.
Mm.
And so maybe what Erin took away from that moment was, oh, I'm on my own with this, with my baby. Like there's no help. There's no help on the mainland, right? This is me. This is my shit now because the person on the mainland just thinks I'm crazy. And so I have to deal with this. I have to get over this. I have to find a way to deal with this on my own. And so maybe she's going to take that same kind of strength and energy into, okay, we got a problem on Crockett and there's no saving. There's no one on the mainland that's going to help us because they didn't believe me about my baby. They're certainly not going to believe any of this shit. We're on our own. I'm on my own because Riley's gone. So, I mean, maybe that's an encouraging fact that she has the ability to take this on and save the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that framing. We have subtly set her up as the shadow protagonist, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's essentially what you and I are saying right now is
yes,
we thought that Riley was the hero because he just so clearly seemed to be the hero. But in the background, we've also been setting up Erin Green as the hero the whole time. It just wasn't obvious. And a good hero has to have their struggle. It's not easy to be a hero.
He told us in the first episode he wasn't the prodigal son. He said he looked at Erin and said, "That's you. You're the prodigal daughter."
I've never quite seriously thought about this, but you're absolutely right. From the first episode, it's like, Erin, look at Erin. Look at her. Isn't she a more interesting character than Riley if you think about it?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think that is really interesting. We talked a little bit about how we felt that Riley is a Mike Flanagan surrogate, if ever there was one, right? And we probably should have just asked him about this, but it is really interesting that like he makes this character that is in many ways just him. And then he's like, well, he's not going to survive this. He's only there to help in his final moments, the real hero of the story.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that, but it's just interesting to think about.
Yeah. It's great.
I love Riley Flynn as a character. I think one thing we haven't said yet is the actual opening of our episode is just a series of shots of photos of Riley and his family. And that plays really well at the beginning of the episode because we think maybe Riley is dead. And of course it plays really well understanding the full scope of the episode, knowing that this is our final episode with Riley Flynn. Just really reinforcing all his connections. I also we haven't talked about this, but we get another angle of his room as his mom is standing in there kind of wondering where she is. And something I hadn't mentioned is his wallpaper is like a map of the world. It's the world on it. He's got a lot of postcards on his wall, presumably from Erin. I don't know if we ever actually see, but Erin probably sent him postcards when she ran away from home. And he's also got this big poster for it says 2008 Panamania, and it's got a sailboat on it, and it says "Race the Clock." I looked this up. It's not a real thing. I couldn't find it. But like it shows Riley as this person who wanted to get away from here, right? That's one thing his mom says to him in last week's episode is like, you always felt like this wasn't really your home. Like I think it was like, if we're trapped on an island, why aren't we living in trees like Swiss Family Robinson or something like that? That Riley always kind of felt like he always wanted to see the world and travel other places, and like the kind of tragedy in the fact that the events of his life brought him back here, and this is where he dies, and he's never going to escape this island. Just really kind of the subtle background work of the set decoration reinforcing that in the episode where Riley does die, I think is pretty great stuff.
Yeah, it emphasizes the tragedy and the who this guy really is, where he came from, and what motivates him. Yeah, that's a great point.
I also Sarah Gunning is reading a research paper when her mom walks in wearing clothes, and how do you pronounce this word? It's a telomere.
Yeah, it's funny. I always said telomere because I knew about this way before it was cool, and then when it became popular, people started saying telomere. So maybe it's telomere.
Okay. What is a telomere, Max? So she's reading an article titled "Telomeres or Telomeres and Aging." What is a telomere?
Well, it's so your chromosomes all have basically a cap on the end, and this cap is the telomere. The telomeres, perhaps. I don't actually know the exact usage, but basically it's a repeating sequence of DNA, the purpose of which is to literally be a sort of ablative layer where like each time your cell divides, you lose a little bit of the telomere. And you can actually tell how old someone is by the length of their telomeres. And it was thought many years ago when I first found out about this that like, oh, we figured it out. Aging. We can reverse aging by making the telomeres longer. And it's like, no, the telomeres are more like a clock that just tells you how many times the cell is divided. It's not the telomeres that are making the cell age. The telomeres shortening they're shortening for the same reason that everything else in the cell is just kind of becoming shitty, is like entropy, and stuff goes wrong the more cycles happen. But that all being said, telomeres and aging are very tied together because they're like a clock. They're like an aging clock.
Sure. So we could maybe perhaps say, we haven't seen this, but we could maybe assume that Sarah Gunning has taken some of her mother's blood and maybe looked at it or had it tested or something, and is trying to figure out, because like her mom is noticeably younger. Like that's one thing we've really reinforced in this episode. Like in the previous episodes, it was just like, oh, her dementia is magically cured and she's returned to herself. But it's gone beyond that now, where it's just like she's considerably younger than she was at the beginning of the show. We actually can kind of see Alex Esso, who plays this character for the first time in this episode. It's like, oh yeah, that's her, Wendy Torrance. And so like I think this is something the show is now reckoning with. For it's kind of done it in the background, but we're kind of seeing our characters reckon with it. Like even last week, Riley's mom, Annie, just said, I don't need my glasses anymore and your dad's back is fine. She didn't say, also, I look like 10 years younger than I did a few weeks ago. But that's something our characters are starting to reckon with now because first of all, Mildred, there's also a great shot when Wade first sees Mildred and sees her young. He like looks at his hands as if to like maybe like, oh yeah.
Sorry,
oh, me too. And so this is, I think it's interesting that like we're getting to the point now where our characters are having to acknowledge this as well as the other specific like acute miracles. Everyone's just getting younger.
Yeah. I feel like if I just spontaneously started to look younger, I would on some level be like, oh, that's a nice little surprise. But I probably deserve this, and then I would just go on with my day. But yeah, when you see an 80-year-old woman suddenly look like she's in her 40s, at maybe late 30s. I mean, it's funny. A lot of the age in this episode is really just her acting like an old woman, or like acting from a woman from that era where she kind of has that lilt and that kind of like, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's part of the performance. Yeah. Which is fun.
Yeah. I liked all that. I like Sarah kind of like the look Sarah gives when she sees her mother is like really, really perfect actually. Cause it's like, it's not a look of like surprised happiness. It's like when other characters see her, when she walks up to the church and the Scarboroughs see her, they're like, oh my goodness. When Sarah looks at her mom like that, it's just worry.
Yeah.
It's like shock laced with what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah.
And she's terrified.
Right. Because she's a doctor. She knows this is not possible. Yeah.
This doesn't just happen. Yeah. Unless it does, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and feel a little younger.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that moment where like I put on a pair of pants and I was like, oh, these are a little bit looser today. I guess despite not changing my diet or doing any exercise, I'm losing a little weight.
Yeah.
No, that's just the pants loosening.
Yeah. Well, Scott, any day now, I'm going to get really, really fit, as I've been telling you for the entire time you've known me. So don't worry about it.
We're going to start that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Get super fit.
Yep.
It's going to be great. Anyone want to pay for a personal trainer for me? That'd be... all right. Anything else you wanted to talk about in this one?
Kind of just a meta point. Like one of the things we talked about with Mike on the interview was that this book this story started out as a novel. Mm-hmm. In some iteration, it was there was a version of it that kind of looked like a novel, probably a shorter version of it, I would guess. I was just thinking while watching these scenes with Father Paul, Father Pruitt, that this would just play so differently in a novel, because so much of the effectiveness of his fiery rhetoric is the charisma and the persuasiveness and the magnetism of the actor, and he so believes what he's saying, and he's just trying to earnestly communicate the truth to Riley. And like, even though I've seen this show before, he's kind of starting to win me over. Like, he's just so goddamn charismatic. And I was like, I feel like by default, if you're reading that, it comes across as a lot more manipulative. I'm not saying that it's impossible to write it in a different way than that. I'm just saying the power of having an actor performing the lines really puts a spin on it. And I'm just like, that's just one of those moments where I was sitting back from it and I was like, this is a scene that I just think really benefits from being a TV show and not a novel, actually.
That's a fun idea. Yeah. I mean, I think it would be a challenge to approach this in a novel in a way that communicates that kind of charisma. Like, you would almost have to jump into characters' thoughts and have them remark like how charismatic and like, in a way that it does feel very, very different from the way it'll, like, I think sometimes, we talk about sometimes TV and movies are like cheat codes to emotions, because it's like just where it's you absorb stuff so much differently in that kind of visual medium. And yeah, I mean, Hamish Linklater's performance here just does everything you want it to do and more. It's really, really excellent. He's so good in this show. Like, this is absolutely a stacked cast of a show, as Mike Flanagan shows normally are, but like he is jaw-droppingly incredible in this show. I can't get over it. Like, and it's not even like a one-note thing. It's not even like the soft-spoken priest thing, because he's also like, when he yells at Riley, when he like pushes Riley to finally admit that he feels jealousy there, like, I felt the power of that too. Like, he's got the soft-spoken, kind, cool priest stuff, but he's also got the kind of zealous, angry, passionate priest stuff too, and everything in between. Like, I still can't get over that moment in last week's episode where he looks at Mildred and says, I have so much to tell you, and he's like so like giddy and excited, and that's like a completely different version of him. And yeah, man, it's so good.
Love that you mentioned that.
One more thing I wanted to talk. I want to briefly talk about Bill a little bit, Bowl, because I actually found this scene really touching. That, like, we had a couple episodes ago, we had that montage of like, everything's good and happy, and look, everyone's getting younger. And even in this episode, we have like, look, Riley, God is working on this island, and look, like, she's walking and she doesn't have dementia anymore, and everyone's getting younger and they're happier, and look, this is the will of God working, and he's saving this place. And he's forgetting the people that have not been saved, right?
Mhm.
He's forgetting the Bill, who, yes, was a drug dealer. But we learn in this, he was dealing the drugs because his mother, while working 2 jobs, still could not keep enough food on the table to support their family. And so he started doing this to bring in a little bit of income. He's forgetting Joe Collie as well. Like, everyone's happy and look, God is saving the town. Well, he's saving the chosen ones. And we're forgetting about everyone else. And that's not how Christianity is supposed to be, right?
Yeah. That's
kind of what Bill's mom calls them out on, is this idea of the line she says, this is the reason I wanted to bring this up. I just remembered it. The line she says is, when something like this happens, we are all supposed to be the same, right? This idea that when someone goes missing or when a tragedy happens, or it's supposed to pull everyone together. We're all supposed to be the same. And so much so this kind of religious dogma stuff divides and separates and segments populations. Now we have how the Christians are what's happening with the Christians and the non-Christians and the Muslims and the atheists, and it's like that central idea just introduced here in the beginning of an episode where a ton happens is, when something like this happens, we are all supposed to be the same, and we're not.
Yeah. So I like the idea of Crockett Island being, a parable, a microcosm for us, the world.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a great reading. I mean, I think that's the only reason I maybe haven't mentioned that more is the point of the parable is not clear until you have seen the whole show, because you need to know the resolution. But I've been thinking about this, that and like you just said, we're all mankind together. We're all on the same side, and yet we find these reasons that turn on each other, and to have an in-group and an out-group and exclude people, and people like Bull will get expended because, or Joe Collie, they're beyond saving. Too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well. Or you've got the Muslim sheriff. It's like, well, he means well, but what can you do for him? He is going to hell. So might as well,
Might as well just speed up the trip.
Yeah.
Not great stuff. But well placed in this episode.
Yeah.
We forgot about Bill. You and I forgot about Bill. He died. We talked about how wonderful the scene was. It was a great scene. It's awesome. But who was he as a person? Not important. Look, Lisa's walking again. Great. Awesome. This guy's dead. What did he do?
Yeah. Well, he sold drugs to children, Scott.
Well, of course.
He deserves to die.
Yes. That's how
that's
how it works.
I'm a good person.
Oh my gosh. Anything else you had?
Nope.
The only other thing I had was at one point when Father Paul is talking about what is done can't be undone, he kept saying, what is done can't be undone. And all I was hearing in my head is done bun can't be undone, which is an Insomnia reference, Stephen King's Insomnia, for those of you that don't remember that. But that was just kept being in my head. Done bun can't be undone.
Yeah. Well, if we're just saying silly things, when I first wrote down chasuble in my notes, I wrote chopsicle, and then I left that note there because I made myself laugh so hard about chopsicle, which is nonsense. But anyway,
I kind of wish it was called chopsicle.
Yeah,
that's great.
I'm gonna call it chopsicle from now on.
We did not talk about Father Paul when he's fixing Riley's neck from being horribly broken, because not only did the vampire feed on him, but horribly broke his neck. He talks about his sister who died of polio, his sister Alice, I believe her name was, and how it is her death of polio that led him to the church and then eventually the priesthood, because he was in desperate search of answers for why and how that was part of God's plan. What I love about that story is he never tells like what he learned, like how his sister dying of polio was God's plan.
Yeah,
because there's no. I mean, I guess he could make the argument as like, well, it led me to becoming a priest, so thanks God.
Yeah,
for that one.
Exactly.
There's no other way to lead me to the priesthood, so to give a horrible disease to my sister.
I mean, like, as you say, he doesn't tell us, but I fear that the way that this always works for people is some good thing later happens in their life, and they're like, that wouldn't have happened if that horrible thing hadn't happened to my sister. Therefore, God works in mysterious ways. And it's like, or maybe it's just a bunch of shit happened.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
I once again, and I know a broken record, but I completely understand and support and often do like use like terrible shit happening and trying to find comfort in it through like the unknowable mysteries of our universe, right?
Yeah.
But I just can't ever get there with well, this was part of the plan and that had to happen, so this could happen. I can't get there. I cannot get there. I cannot get on that page ever.
Well, yeah. I do think it's pretty universal that we try to narrativize our lives and find, like when we say that we want to find meaning in things, there's at least two different things people mean by that. But one of them is I need to find a story that is like narratively coherent and has a obvious lesson that I can take away. And reality doesn't do that. Reality doesn't have that property of giving you nice stories that have, the structure of a parable. So you have to find it to be sane in some cases.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
Makes me sad.
Yes. I don't think I had any spoiler comments for this week either, because we're so close to the end.
I mean, there are some spoilery things we could talk about, but there's nothing specific. No, I don't think we need to have any.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're 2 episodes away from the end. I think the spoiler section has kind of left us behind.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So let's move right to discussion question.
Let's do it. Last week's discussion question was, what is your favorite miracle? Baby King, you dig your Sam says, Miracle Max restoring Wesley from almost dead to mostly alive in The Princess Bride. One of the few perfect films out there. R.I.P. Rob Reiner.
Yes. Wonderful, wonderful film.
Yep.
Next, we have the Charbear 14, who says, my favorite miracle might be when Belle breaks the curse in Beauty and the Beast. Her tearful confession of love over the Beast's dying and his subsequent resurrection and transformation into a human, along with Alan Menken's score, is one of the most beautiful pieces of animation I've ever seen and proves how well-earned its Best Picture nomination was. The scene always makes me cry, and no exaggeration, I started crying when I was typing up the description of that scene. I love that. I also can't help but every time I see that scene, think of the people who see the Beast transformation from beast to human as a downgrade, because those people do exist out there, Matt.
Yeah. He looked way more awesome as the Beast. I'll give him that.
I mean, let's be honest. She fell in love with the hairy Beast guy.
Yeah.
It's like, can you go back to...
I understand. I can get with it.
Look, no shame, no kink shaming here.
Yeah,
you like what you like.
Oh, the beast is hot. I'm just gonna say it. I'm so brave. All right. House of Seven Paws says, my favorite miracle is a totally useless one, the miracle of the herrings from the late 13th century. The story is that Thomas Aquinas, the Dominican friar and scholar, got sick and was refusing to eat unless he could have some herrings. The fish merchant said, I don't have herrings, I just have this barrel of some other salted fish. But when the barrel was opened, lo and behold, herrings. Maybe just an inventory mistake by the merchant, but maybe God put them there. In spite of this possible divine favor, Aquinas decided he wasn't hungry anyway, and he didn't eat the herrings. You might imagine how God felt about this if you've ever gone to a lot of effort to provide a favorite food for a cat or a child. This would be of no importance at all, except that the official requirements for a saint include miracles. When Aquinas was being proposed for sainthood, the lack of reported miracle events around him was a problem until someone mentioned they'd heard of this herring story, and the church was like, okay, sure, that technically counts. I love this story. I had never heard this. Thank you, House
I
of
never
Sun
heard
Pause.
this before. I love it, and it's so stupid. Someone just made up a bullshit story.
It's a miracle.
I'm only going to eat herrings.
Also, just imagine being sick, like feeling ill and being like, the only thing I will eat is pickled fish.
Oh, and then God being like, well, okay.
Yeah.
And then you don't eat them anyway?
It's great. It's great.
Why do you think, obviously this is like a made up story, right? But like, why do you think in the story they included the detail that he didn't eat them anyway?
I mean, maybe it's totally true, and this is just an inventory mistake, like he said. It was just like, oh, I thought this was, I don't know, some other fish.
Come on, we need some miracles. We need some miracles.
Yeah, anybody.
Yeah. One time, like we didn't think there was some fish in a barrel, and then there were fish in the barrel.
Yeah,
and they just so happened to be the fish he really wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, one time I thought I was out of pasta, and then I looked in the pantry, and there was a whole nother thing of pasta in there.
Yeah.
Praise God.
You're going to be a saint, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure it happens.
Well, it's on the record.
Yeah. Scarlet Claret says, I have two favorite miracles, and they both involve cannibalism. Okay. For fiction, I thoroughly enjoyed The Starving Saints, a fantasy horror set in a vaguely medieval setting with Catholicism replaced by a female bee deity religion. It's spelled like the insect bee.
I guess so.
As the besieged castle is at the brink of starvation, the three main characters, a heretic former nun turned magician, mysterious servant, and knight, all female, are confronted with the appearance of the constant lady and her saints in the courtyard. They bring bounty and revelry, miraculously rescuing the starving inhabitants, but the miracles and the entities are not exactly what they claim to be. That bee is spelled the normal way.
Okay.
Are they bees, though? I'm really curious.
I think the religion is based around bees.
Okay.
But I don't think they are bees. But
I'm
I am curious.
Disappointed. I want them to be bees.
They might be.
For fact, the miracle in the Andes, think the movie Alive. For a non-spiritual person, this is as close to a true miracle in my cosmos, a literal triumph of the human spirit. Every single one of those people were heroes. Nando Parado ended up being the linchpin of survivors' rescue. In the initial crash, he suffered a severe head injury with brain bleeding and swelling. That night, as they all huddled in the fuselage, a rough triage happened. The unconscious Nando was thought too far gone, so was placed closer to the entrance. His head was left in the cold, but his body was just barely close enough to the group that the swelling in his brain reduced. The bleeding stemmed, and the rest of his body was warm enough to sustain life. He went on to become a staunch leader and make the incredible trek out of the Barrens Peaks to get help for the others. Yeah, a pretty remarkable story. They did also eat people.
Yeah, well, sometimes you got... Look, Scott, you know what I'm going to say. Sometimes you got to eat people.
I mean, I think as we've said in the past, the long storyline of our podcasting together is you slowly revealing that you are just a cannibal.
Yeah, right. I mean, in this case, I guess it's good that they didn't eat this particular guy. I guess I'll grant you that, Scarlet Claret. I'll compromise with you there.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right.
I just want 1 week where you don't hint at pro cannibalist views. Just 1 week.
You were the one who asked them for their favorite miracles, and cannibalism is going to come up if you talk about miracles. All right. Mary Liz 19 says, the word miracle always reminds me of M. Night Shyamalan's movie Signs. Graham, played by Mel Gibson, and Meryl, played by Joaquin Phoenix, the greatest actor of all time, have an amazing dialogue in which they discuss faith and how faith makes you see the world in a certain way. There are a lot of parallels to draw between Signs and Midnight Mass. Monsignor Pruitt faces a disgusting demon vampire, and all he can see is an angel. In a similar way, Merrill sees a miracle in the most mundane situation. He wants to kiss a girl at a party, and in the split second it takes him to spit his gum, the girl throws up. To Merrill, this can only be a miracle. Had he not been chewing a gum, he would have been scarred for life. Joaquin Phoenix delivers his lines perfectly, and this discarded chewing gum is always the first thing on my mind when I hear the word miracle. I love that. Thank you for reminding me of that, because I thought you were going to talk about the overt supernatural events of the story, but no, this is a way more fun thing to discuss, actually.
Yeah, you always get bonus points with Matt for talking about Signs.
Yeah, and Joaquin
and
Phoenix.
Cannibalism.
And you get bonus points for talking about Joaquin Phoenix with Scott. So,
what if you had to eat Joaquin Phoenix?
Had to eat Joaquin Phoenix. All right, and with that, let me quickly run through the rest of these. Thanks, everyone, as always. Jaraxis Eridor Lord says, faith healer curing addiction is Stephen King's revival with something wrong about it. BZ Dad 82 says, Andy Kaufman being fooled by Philippine psychic healer in The Man on the Moon. Man on the Moon. DJ Nedelko says, Queen's The Miracle song crediting Mother Nature over God for World's Wonders. Steve Living Room CO says, Miracle the Horse from Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1. Great. Darren Longbeard says, Zeus eating his wife and birthing Athena from his head. And also the Rugrats Passover episode, which I don't know.
The two miracles
yeah.
of the world.
So the Western canon, yeah. Pear Jane says, Boogie Nights, the donut shop robbery scene, letting Don Cheadle fund his stereo store. Yeah.
Love it.
I love that scene because you just think something horrible is going to happen, and it's just pure eucatastrophe. Don Zest says, Pearl Jam's Given to Fly, a song about an escaped prisoner discovering wings and freedom. Kat Shepsut Reads says, David Gimmel's Legend, featuring the miraculous battle against overwhelming odds. Gosh, I love that book. I don't think you and I have ever talked about that book. I don't think I've ever mentioned that book in any in any doof context, but that was a really, really formative book for me.
I don't even know what it is.
It's fantasy. It's quite short. It's very powerful, or at least I remember it being so. Yeah, haven't thought about that in a while. Bent Westward says, Life of Pi, the survival story with ambiguous miracles and supernatural elements. Yes, I mean, that's certainly ambiguous. Yeah. Thanks for everyone's contributions. As always, really appreciate them.
Yep. All right. Next week, Matt, we're asking a good one. We got a vampire. A vampire died in this episode. Poor Riley Flynn was set on fire and horribly died. But there's been a lot of vampire death in the world. And I thought we could ask people, what is your favorite vampire death?
Yeah.
Your favorite one?
There's a lot of them, like Scott said, so have fun.
I like, have you ever seen the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie? I'm not going to talk about the show. You ever seen the movie?
Nope. Would it spoil the show to watch the movie?
No.
Yeah.
No. Wouldn't spoil anything at all, other than like she's a teenager who also is a vampire slayer.
Okay.
My point is, in the movie, Paul Rubens plays a vampire, and he is stabbed in the heart with a stake, and he dies very slowly over the course of like 8 minutes while going, ooh, ooh. And it's the funniest damn thing in the world. So that's my pick. So you guys can't take that one now.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell them my pick because I hope that they just find the true answer in their hearts.
I mean, it's going to be freaking Interview with a Vampire because you just watched it recently.
No.
Well, anyway, let us know what your favorite vampire deaths are. All right, that is going to do it for us this week. As we said, no spoilers section. Nothing to spoil pretty much anymore. But we will continue next week with our penultimate episode of Midnight Mass, episode 6, book 6, Acts of the Apostles.
Is this because the apostles are going to get up to some acts, with the apostles being our main characters?
Yes, Matt, that is correct.
Good.
Good job.
You're welcome.
They might even be eating people.
Yeah.
You know how you like that.
You're right. I do have a lot to look forward to. You can reach us at via email at flanagan'swakepod@gmail.com. We're on all the other socials. Find us at flanagan'swake19 on X, on at Doof Media on Instagram, on Blue Sky at Flanagan's Wake Pod, and of course the subreddit at reddit.com/r/Doof Media is the best place to answer those discussion questions. And also, of course, the YouTube channel is another great place to visit us and leave a comment and let us know what you think.
Yes. Also, please head over to doofmedia.myshopify.com and see our merch. There is a new Midnight Mass section in the merch store. It's got the Crocodile and Cat Cafe mug that we saw, but it's also got some new stuff. We have a new St. Patrick's sketch up there that is on a mug and also on a canvas. Lots of cool things up there. So please check that out. It's doofmedia.myshopify.com.
Yeah, and if you want to support us, then please head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia. We are doing a bunch of bonus podcasts again. Me and Scott are doing more episodes of our bonus podcast covering the TV show From. And we're getting back on the horse with Freeman Bros, which we've had multiple people tell us they really like Freeman Bros. And it's not that we don't enjoy doing Freeman Bros. It's just... we've fallen off the wagon, so we're going to keep doing that.
That's news to me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Well,
cool.
There you go.
Yeah, we are in the middle of kind of doing a big push to get as many new patrons as possible right now, whether you're free or paid. The goal is to get up to 1,000. We are, as I record this, currently sitting at 859, so that's a pretty big jump from when we started first mentioning this, so thank you all for helping with that. But if you could help us hit that 1K mark, as we said last week, that will finally make us truly happy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Of course, if you cannot afford to be a paying patron, or you don't want to be a free patron, that's okay too, I guess. You can still help us out. You can help us by sharing the podcast. Please keep sharing this podcast. Please keep leaving us ratings and reviews. That kind of stuff does really help us. We're not really doing any advertisement or anything right now. We're really just relying on you guys, on word of mouth, on people finding us through the internet, and you are all part of the internet. So please keep doing that stuff you're doing. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we'll see you back here next week for episode 6 of Midnight Mass. Until then, get all ashy in the boat, Mr. Flanagan. Not my best one. I'm sorry.